Hello everyone. Welcome to the second English SAT class. So for those of you who've not watched the first SAT class, please go on YouTube and watch for SAT by Excelencia so that we know what we had covered last time. To quickly brief you on what we covered last time, so we did take you through the SAT journey where we said SAT has two components, writing and reading. So then last class I did introduce you to the format of the SAT paper, and then we started with the writing section. So for the writing section I did tell you that there are 44 questions that need to be answered in 35 minutes. And basically there are passages which need to be edited, and there could be grammar edits that are required, or there could be a little bit of vocab edit, or it could be a structural edit. So therefore we started with a grammar class where I taught you few things in grammar. So the two topics that I touched upon in the first video, in the first lecture, was subject verb agreement and pronouns. So now I want to continue from there. So let's move on to the next grammar concept, which is extremely important. But before that, let me just discuss something with the pronouns which I was talking about last time. So what I did mention last time is the pronouns are used instead of nouns. They come for nouns. That's again basic common sense. So we did 3 rules with them, which I'm going to touch upon again. The first rule is called a pronoun agreement rule. By name itself, what is a pronoun agreement rule? The pronoun agreement rule says that the pronoun has to agree to the noun in number and in gender. Obviously, that is why I was using a pronoun in the first case. So the pronoun has to agree to the noun. So if I say Aditi is coming to my house, I will have to say she to refer back to Aditi. I can't use a they, I can't use a he. Basic common sense. So pronoun has to agree. Now on the SAT writing passages, they may give me a pronoun which is used incorrectly. So they may have used a singular noun and then they use a plural pronoun. So then from the options, I would know that I need to use a singular pronoun and not a plural pronoun. The second rule is an interesting one, and where we kind of, always falter. It's the pronoun ambiguity rule. Ambiguity says that the pronoun should unambiguously refer to one and only one noun. It cannot refer to multiple nouns. For example, if I say Aditi and Harshita were going to the party, and she was wearing a green dress, this she is ambiguous. I don't know what the she is referring to. So then this is called an ambiguous pronoun. I cannot use a she here. There is no rule that the she has to refer to the latter or the she has to refer to the former. So the she is ambiguous. I cannot use a she is incorrect. So what do I do then? I will either have to say Aditi was wearing a green dress if she was wearing the green dress, or if I want to refer to Harshita, I'll have to use Harshita, or if I'm speaking of both, I will use a they. So ambiguity says that the pronoun should clearly have only one reference. Yes? Pronoun consistency tells me that keep using the same kind of pronoun throughout. So I cannot say one should watch his purse when one crosses the street. One should watch one's purse when one crosses the street. Or he should watch his purse when he crosses the street. So keep using the same kind of pronoun throughout. Yes, Aditya? Welcome to the class. So Aditya, we're touching upon grammar. So whenever you all don't understand anything, please do ask. It could be in between a concept that I'm doing. For our YouTube viewers, you can just type it in the chat box. For the students that we have, you all can, raise your hand, you all can interrupt me, but please do ask. It's very important that the class flows in an interactive manner where you stop me and you ask me the minute you don't understand anything. Yes? Okay. So let's move on to a very, very important topic today. So Shrikant, Amanda, whenever we don't understand anything, whenever there is a query, please do interrupt me and do ask me. Extremely important that you all get your concepts clarified.
Sure.
Yes, Amanda. Okay, so verb tenses, no guys, is a very, very important chapter. Even generally, one needs to understand these tenses. What has happened is, English has become more of a default language. We've started speaking in a way, we hear, we read, we speak in a very, very colloquial manner now. So tenses is the most ignored topic. SAT catches you on these little small tense errors a lot. So it's important to understand this chapter, and again, it's important not to memorize. So do not worry about, okay ma'am, so when you're teaching me, I'm understanding but I'm forgetting. Because from next class onwards, we're going to work on application. So I'm just touching upon all these concepts, so at least that base is there. But it's actually, truly speaking, once we start solving, you will see how all of this will culminate. So do not worry about remembering names, jargons, definitions. Those will never be asked. So it's all application, okay? But so far we've not started solving yet. So in fact, it's only today that I'll be rambling one-sided. And from class 3 onwards, from the next session onwards, it's going to be very, very dialogue-based. You all will be solving with me. We'll see how all of this that we've done, how all of this will translate into questions and problem solving. Yes? So try and follow this. Stop me wherever you don't understand anything. What are verbs, but if I were to ask you what are verbs, Jeel, would you know what are verbs? Or anyone, would you all know what are verbs?
All action words.
All action words, awesome, okay? So verbs are nothing but action words. So sleep, drink, dance, swim, these are all action words. How about is, are, has, have, had, Aditya, are these also verbs?
Is, has.
Is, like, if I say Aditi is a teacher, is a verb?
Yes, ma'am.
Is also a verb, that's right, Aditya. But is doing no action there, no? But it is still a verb. So, Jeel, verbs are not only action words, they're of course action words, but they also denote the state of being of something or somebody. State of being, like that example which I just gave you, Aditi is a teacher, that is just a state of being, no? She's not doing any action there. But that is also a verb. So, is, are, has, have, had, will, would, am, these are all also verbs. Yes, so can we establish that? Action words, of course, doing words, of course, and also state of being words. These are verbs. Now, verbs can have tenses. What do I mean by tenses? That they're done in various time frames, different time frames, based on which the tense changes. The 3 basic tenses, and very, very basic, is simple present, simple past, simple future. Sam reads, Sam read, Sam will read. So, simple present is when I'm doing an action now. It's generally used to denote a hobby. Like Aditi collects stamps, that's her hobby. Or a habit. Aditi reads at the breakfast table, that's a habit. That also takes a simple present. Or a fact. Planets revolve around the sun. That's a fact. So that also takes a simple present. So present tense, reads, is used to denote a hobby, habit, or a fact. Past tense, of course, when I did something in the past, Sam read the book yesterday, last year, last month, the day before, in the morning at 9 a.m. So Sam read the book today morning. So all these are actions which are done in the past tense, so they take the simple past. Future, of course, something which will happen in the future. So Sam will read a book tomorrow. That's future. Now, Shrikant, can you tell me what would be present continuous, past continuous, and future continuous then?
Just like there will be ing which will be added to the verb.
Correct. So it's continuous, ing added to the verb. So Sam is reading for a singular, or are reading if it's plural. If it's past continuous, was reading or were reading, and future continuous will be reading. Awesome. Now guys, please don't get into memorizing the names as long as you know the context of use. So when an action is ongoing in the present, it's present continuous. When it was ongoing in the past, past continuous. When it will ongo in the future, future continuous. And this question will keep niggling as to why are we doing all this. So from class 3, lecture 3 onwards, hopefully, that's going to settle in, because we'll start solving. So right now, of course, as in just be patient and try and just understand these grammar rules. Present perfect is the next tricky tense, and we need to understand when do we use a present perfect. A present perfect, okay, will one have a has or a have along with the main verb in the past tense. Past tense. So I will say Sam has read, friends have read. So please notice I'm using a has or a have, has for singular, have for plural, with the main verb in the past tense, and I'm still calling it a present perfect. It's called a present perfect because this action, guys, began in the past and it just got completed now in the immediate present. So if I say Aditi has lived in this house for 10 years, it tells me that she started living in this house 10 years back, and so far she's lived in this house. Yes? It gives me a sense of a time span. So therefore time clues like since, for and over are commonly used with present perfect. So on the SAT, if they give you a sentence which has these time clues since, for and over, and it does not have a present perfect, suppose they use a past tense, then you would know that is incorrect. Because whenever there is a since, for and over, there's a span of time, I like to use the present perfect. Action began in the past, just got over in the immediate present. So there's a transition from the past into the present. Is that clear? No confusion? Amanda, do we understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Present perfect continuous, on the contrary, is again action began in the past but it is still ongoing. So Aditi has been living in this house for 10 years now. So that's also correct. The only difference from the previous tenses, when I said Aditi has lived, I know her status quo so far. When I say Aditi has been living, she's still in the process of living. So I don't know, if it will go into the future maybe. Here also I can use time clues like since, for and over. So for the previous one, it was Aditi has lived. For this one, it's Aditi has been living. It's present perfect continuous. Now tell me, were all of you there for the last lecture, or there were some of you who had not attended that or have not seen that?
I wasn't there.
Okay.
Neither was I, ma'am.
Okay, so therefore, as in just to bring in the next thing, I will have to just go back to something which I had done last time. So just tell me whether you all understand this or not. Guys, it's very, very important, this concept, that parts of speech in English grammar cannot be predetermined. What do I mean by that? Parts of speech cannot be predetermined. I said that I am swimming. There is no confusion. Jill just told us that am swimming is an action word because, she's doing this action of swimming. So, am swimming is my verb. There's no confusion there, and now we know it's my present continuous verb tense. Yes? But if I suppose, give you another sentence, I suppose say, I love football. Can you tell me, Aditya, what part of speech is football? Is football a noun? Is it a verb? Is it an adjective? What is football?
Noun.
Noun. What is love? Shrikant?
Or is it a verb?
Absolutely, absolutely. Love is my verb, lovely guys. And football is my noun. I'm doing the action of loving a sport, amazing. So I love cricket. Same thing, guys. Cricket is my common noun, love is my verb. So if I say, I love swimming, is swimming still a verb? What is swimming now, Madhumita?
Is it an action noun?
Is it a?
Is it? An action noun.
No, it is a noun, not an action noun. It is just a noun. So this is a verb which is ending in ing, but it's acting like a noun, guys. Okay, so I had touched upon this in lecture 1. I'm again repeating myself. So when I say I am swimming is a verb. But when I said I love football, football was my noun. Similarly, I love swimming. It's a name of a sport that I love. So swimming is acting like a noun there. So Aditi, I grew up all my life thinking swimming is a verb. You're right. Swimming is a verb, but in this case, swimming is acting like a noun. So parts of speech cannot be predetermined. Here it's called a gerund. When a verb ends in ing and acts like a noun, it's given a special name. It's called a gerund. Again, you don't have to remember this name at all. Do we understand, Madhumita, Aditya? Yeah, it's one and the same thing. Absolutely. But just be, open about asking your doubts, whichever platform you all are on. So we've established, Jyotika, that I love swimming. Swimming can act like a noun. I am swimming. Swimming is my verb. There's no problem. Why am I repeating this now when I'm doing the verb tense chapter? Because on the SAT, sometimes you will see that there are two options given and both are grammatically correct. In that case, if you have two tenses given, one is a simple present and other is a present continuous, I prefer a simple tense over a continuous tense. So I will prefer something like Aditi read a book over something which says Aditi was reading a book. There is no way that Aditi was reading is incorrect, guys. But sometimes, you have to correct the sentence, you have to edit the sentence in the best possible manner. And a simple tense is preferred over a continuous tense for the only reason that the continuous seems to be, a little more wordy. And SAT loves very short, sweet, scientific sentences. So you may have to choose a simple past over a past continuous, a simple future over a future continuous, and similarly, you might prefer a present perfect over a present perfect continuous. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
So I may have to choose sometimes a simple present, a simple tense over a continuous tense. And at that stage, you all need to know, Amanda, that this swimming is completely all right if it's a noun ing. It's only a verb ing that I don't like.
Yeah, okay, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with the verb ing. If there is a simple tense, I'll prefer that over a continuous. But I'm completely okay with a noun ing. I love gerunds.
Okay.
Awesome. Can I move on to the next tense then? The next tense is slightly tricky. It's called the past perfect. A past perfect has a had with the main verb in the past tense. Now, past tense verb with a had. So what does that mean? Let me just read out these points and then I'm going to explain it to you. In the sentence, there has to be two or more actions. All the actions have to be done in the past tense. From the given sequence of the sentence, action 1 should happen before action 2. In that case, action 1 is past perfect and action 2 is simple past. Obviously, we can't understand anything. Let me explain this. If I give you a simple sentence, okay, the next one. Sam had read the book before her friend recommended it to her. What are the verbs in this sentence? Yutika, can you tell me which are the verbs in this sentence? Yes. Absolutely. So then there are two verbs there, had read and recommended. Both of these are in the past tense, so there are two or more actions. They're both in the past tense. Now, Madhumita, do we know the sequence of these actions?
Yes.
Because
we know that Sam had read it before her friend recommended it. So read is the first action and recommended is the second action.
absolutely brilliant. Okay, because of this word before, I know that first Sam read the book and then you recommended. So then action 1 is going to be past perfect, action 2 will be simple past. So when I know the sequence of the actions, the first action is past perfect. Even if there are 2, 3, 20, 30 actions, only the first action is past perfect. All the other actions are simple past.
Normally, past perfect tense is always either followed by simple past because it's just like an action occurring before another action.
Yeah, not normally, always.
Okay.
Okay, so you cannot have just one like Aditi had read the book full stop.
No, she had read the book before her friend recommended it.
Absolutely, absolutely, Amanda. Okay, it will always be followed by a simple past. Of course, what I can do is Sam read after friend had recommended.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask. So if you could write it either way, so yeah.
Yeah, so it's all logical. It does not matter how you write it. So because of this word after, now guys, I know that first somebody recommended and then Sam read the book. So it's really okay to switch over. So I can say Sam read the book after friend had recommended. So that's also perfectly all right. In fact, if I said Sam had read after friend recommended, that would have been wrong. Because that after tells me that first the recommendation came in and then Sam read it. So action 1 has to be past perfect. The sequence of events, okay, this third point is so important, guys, that if I use an and, I can't use a past perfect. If you notice, I'm using simple past. Sam read and friend recommended. I don't know the sequence. Because I don't know the sequence, I can't use a past perfect. So I'm very fussy. I have to know the sequence to be putting a past perfect in the sentence. Is this absolutely clear? Any questions so far?
No questions so far.
So primarily, what we've covered is present perfect and past perfect. Okay, the other tenses were simple. So present perfect, action began in the past, just got over. Past perfect, sequence of events, action 1 is past perfect. Okay, so let's move on. Past perfect continuous is going to be when there are 2 or more actions, but action 1 was interrupted by action 2. So action 1 was ongoing when action 2 will interrupt action 1. So Aditi had been teaching the class when her mom called. So she had been doing something when an action interrupted her. So that's going to be past perfect continuous, but I've rarely seen past perfect continuous coming on the SAT. Future perfect, again rare, but you should know, you will finish an action by a certain time frame in the future. So that's very important. So Aditi will have read the book by tomorrow. Simple future would have been Jill, something like Aditi will read the book tomorrow. But a future perfect is going to be, I'm giving you a guarantee that she will have read the book by tomorrow. This action will get completed by a certain time frame in the future. That's future perfect. Again, future perfect continuous, very rare. Action will be ongoing for a certain time period and it will finish this time period by another time. As in, slightly complicated. Aditi will have been living in this house for a decade by next year. So I will not finish living in this house. I will finish a decade by next year. So there are 2 time clues. So I'll finish one duration by another time frame. That's future perfect continuous. So guys, for a very quick summary, we've done that there are 12 tenses, present perfect, past perfect being the most important ones. So this was just introducing the tenses to you. But why are we doing tenses? Rule number 1, okay, as to why we are doing tenses is, this is very basic, very often tested on the SAT, that the verbs need to be parallel. Basic common sense that when there are multiple verbs in a sentence, they need to be all in the same tense. Unless there are time clues to suggest otherwise. I'll explain that. But if I suppose say Sam reads, dances and sings. So reads, dances, sings, all simple present tense, amazing, great. But if I say Sam reads and danced, that's not correct, no. I can't suddenly use a present tense and a past tense. So I will have to say Sam read and danced or Sam reads and dances. Keep it in the same tense. Unless there are time clues. What do I mean by that? I can say Sam read yesterday and sings every day. That's perfect. How? Because I'm using two different time frames. Aditi went to the library yesterday and is going to the temple now. That's perfectly fine, no? Because I've used two different time clues. So if I've used two different time clues, it's okay to keep the tenses in different time frames, otherwise not. Otherwise, they have to be parallel. Yes, that's basic. This second one, no, we've already discussed that on the SAT, I prefer a simple tense over a continuous tense. So I like this simple tense over a continuous tense. So that's just a preference. The continuous is not wrong. But if you were given two options and both are correct, please just choose a simple one over a continuous one. This next one is very important. Past tense, you know, always will hang around with another past form. What do I mean by that? A present tense, you know, if I suppose say I expect, I can say that I expect that it will rain in the evening or it will rain tomorrow. So guys, expect is present tense, but will rain is future. You all agree? Will is future. So present tense is taking a future tense. But the minute I say I expected, I will have to say that it would rain. You know, yesterday I expected that it would rain today. In the past, when I'm making a prediction for the future, I use a would. I predict that the stock markets will rise. So I'm predicting today now that the stock markets will rise for the future. But you know, last March, I predicted that the stock markets would rise. So I cannot use a will there. I'm using a would. And I like to say that my past tense is super fussy. You know, it will only take another past tense along with it. So present can sometimes hang around with the future tense, but past tense, no ways. It will always take another past tense, and would is nothing but a past of will. So is the usage of would okay? Madhumita, Shrikant, Yutika, Aditya, others? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, another very important concept. So verbs can have tenses, verbs can also have moods, guys. What are moods? The first mood is called a hypothetical or a subjunctive mood, and that's my second usage of would. So one usage of would was that, you know, when I'm using a past tense, like I'm predicting in the past for the future. So in that previous example which we did, where I was saying I expected that it would rain. The second use of would is in a hypothetical situation. Hypothetical situations are unreal situations, okay? They're more like wishful. So if I say, if Aditi were the president, she would abolish exams. Now this is absolutely correct. It's a subjunctive mood. I'm using a were here. Though I've used Aditi singular, I'm using a were plural, and it's absolutely correct. That's because it's a subjunctive mood. Subjunctive mood violates the subject-verb agreement. Subject-verb agreement, for those who were not there for the first lecture, is that the subject and the verb have to agree to each other in number. So I would always say, guys, no, Aditi was coming to my house. You never say Aditi were coming to my house. Aditi singular was singular. But here you're saying if Aditi were. And that's correct because it's hypothetical. So a hypothetical, a subjunctive will always take a were. So, Shrikant, will I say if adolescence were not so painful, it would have been fun, or if adolescence was not so painful, it would have been fun?
Will it be was?
No, it's going to be were, Shrikant, because it's hypothetical, because adolescence is painful. You know, I'm saying if it were not so painful, it would. If COVID were not to hit us, you know, life would have been happier. It's hypothetical, no? COVID has hit us.
Oh, yes.
So whenever it's hypothetical, Baba, even if I'm using a singular subject, guys, I use a plural verb. And that's were. Yes? So irrespective of whether it's a singular subject or a plural subject, I always use a were. So if friends were rich, they would donate more generously. If Aditi were rich, she would donate more generously. So irrespective, I'm always using a plural verb. And the second mood is the imperative mood or the command subjunctive. It says that whenever I use a command verb, it's going to be followed by a that. So I command that, I dictate that, I mandate that, I propose that, I request that. Followed by whoever I'm commanding to. Followed by the verb in the base form. What do I mean by that? Again, for those who did subject-verb agreement with me, or even if you've not done subject-verb agreement, I mentioned in the subject-verb agreement class that a singular subject has to take a singular verb and studies is singular. Do we all know that studies is singular and it's not plural, or is there anyone who has a confusion there? Aditya, do I say Aditya drives his car or Aditya drive his car?
Ma'am, Aditya drives his car.
Aditya drives, no Aditya. Aditya, you are singular, right?
Yeah.
Drives is also singular, guys. You know, we have this common problem. We think S is plural. But S in a verb is plural. S in a noun is plural. S in a verb is always singular. So whenever there is a verb with an S, no, it is always singular. So friends drive. So drive is plural, drives is singular. Is that okay, Yutika, or is there a problem there?
I'm sorry, can you repeat? I was writing.
So Baba, when I say Yutika, suppose I say Yutika writes.
Yeah, that's correct.
So Yutika, that's correct. Yutika is singular, writes is singular, Baba.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so verb ending in S is always singular.
Yes, ma'am.
But when I'm giving you a command, Yutika, okay, in this case, I will say, I command that Yutika write her notes quickly. So I command that Yutika write and not writes. Why? Because whenever there is a command verb, no, whenever I'm using a command, the verb is always in the base form, which is incidentally the plural form.
Got it, ma'am.
Yeah. So guys, you know, whenever I'm giving a command, don't I say, okay, come, you know, Jeel come, Madhumita go, Siddharth sit. So whenever I'm giving a command, the verb is always in the base form. Is that clear? So there are two violations, okay, which we just did. One violation was with the subjunctive, where I said that I'm always using a verb, even if the subject is singular. And the second violation is that I will always use the verb in the base form, which is the plural form, irrespective of whether the subject is singular or plural. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
So the command verbs are request, mandate, recommend, suggest, all these are these command verbs, and they are going to be followed by the verb in the base form. And SAT also says avoid using the should and must. It's just redundant. So I command that Aditi must study, or I command that Aditi should study is avoidable. So again, if you have an option without the should or the must, that's better, because like I'm harping, SAT loves these, you know, short, sweet sentences. Okay, and the third component of the verbs are verbs can also have voices. So active and passive. So I hurt you is active voice. You were hurt by me is passive. Hands down, I prefer an active voice over a passive voice. So the students ate the pizza active. The pizza was eaten by the students passive. And I do prefer an active voice over a passive voice. Yes? Okay, so that's to my big verb tense chapter. So any doubts for the YouTube viewers, you could put it on the chat box. For the class, you know, you all could put it on the chat box or ask me the question, unmute yourself and ask me. Any doubts on this verb tense chapter? Any questions there? No, you all have understood this well? Okay, superb. Even later, you know, guys, if you all have any doubts with this grammar, no, you can always write to us. You can write to the center and then we'll get back to you. So let me just touch upon the next topic, which is actually more of a self-study. There's something called idioms. idioms are nothing but fixed expression in English language. How, guys, area of a circle is pi r square, and you all don't question that, no? That's a math formula which you know. Similarly, when they formulated grammar, they said there are few certain prepositions which will go with certain verbs. Like a forbid, no, will always take a to. I forbid you to smoke. I cannot say I forbid you from smoking. That is incorrect English. I forbid you to smoke, but I prohibit you from smoking. So can't I use them interchangeably, Aditi? Can't I also sometimes say forbid from? Can I sometimes not say prohibit to? No, that's incorrect English. So we cannot say a forbid from and we can't say a prohibit to. So then there can be so many idioms, Aditi. What do we do? So we'll send you some material which will have an idiom list. What you should typically try and do is go through 10 to 15 idioms every day. So I don't want you to sit and mug up like all the idioms possible in English grammar overnight. But what you can do is whenever you're ideal, it's anyways good to know the idioms, because when you're using these things in the sentences, you will understand that you should at least be speaking right English. So it's anyways good to know your idioms. So keep going through 10 to 15 idioms every day. Also know on the SAT, it's a hit or a miss. If you know your idiom, you can just score a point immediately there. So it's extremely important that you all know correct idioms. But having said that, 60 to 70% of the idioms you will know by the sound of it. As in by default, you will know your idioms. There'll be few you may get confused with, which you can always ask. And I will send across a list to you all of the idioms. Yeah? Okay, so then I wanted to start another big chapter called modifiers, if you all were okay. Just give me 1 second. Anyone who can tell me what are modifiers by the name of it, by the sound of it? What do you think modifiers would be? Archita, what do you think modifier would be? Any clue, any idea, anyone? Modifiers is nothing, guys, but extra information. Extra. Anything extra about something or somebody. Something or someone is a modifier. Modifiers can either be one word or they can be group of words which are modifying something or somebody. What do you mean by one word modifiers? Adjectives and adverbs. They're nothing but actually modifiers. They are giving me extra information about something or somebody. So they're modifiers. Adjectives, we know they modify nouns. So if I'm saying she's a tall girl, tall is a modifier describing the girl. If I say this is a blue house, blue is a modifier describing the house. Yes? So any word which describes a noun is a single word modifier called adjective. What are adverbs? By the name itself, they're adding on to verbs. So can anyone give me any example of an adverb apart from the one that is written here? Shrikant, can you give me an example of an adverb? No? Amanda, can you give me an example of an adverb?
Well, it could be a slow.
Slow? Is slow an adverb, Amanda? So she's a slow coach. Slowly. Okay, what is the difference? This brings us to a very good point. So if I say beautiful and I say beautifully, what is the difference between the two? Beautiful, Amanda.
One is an adjective and the other is an adverb.
Absolutely. All ly ending words are always adverbs. Whenever there is an ly, you know it is an adverb. So she is speaking slowly. She is running slowly. So slowly is an adverb, but she's a slow coach. So slow is an adjective. So when I say she's running fast, fast is an adverb describing the running. So fast is an adverb. Adds on to a verb, it's describing the running. Fast is an adverb. Adverbs, guys, they also describe other adverbs. So if I'm saying she's running very fast, Very is also an adverb, Madhumita, describing the verb fast. Sorry, describing the adverb fast. So, is running was my verb. Fast was an adverb describing the running. Very is also an adverb describing another adverb. So, adverbs not only modify verbs, but they also modify other adverbs. Then when I say she's a very pretty girl, very is also an adverb describing the adjective pretty. So, adverbs that describe verbs, adverbs and adjectives. Is that clear or is there any confusion? Any question there? So, adjectives they modify nouns, adverbs they modify verbs, adverbs and other adjectives. So, when I say she's a seeming beautiful girl, that's wrong. She's a seemingly beautiful girl because this is describing the adjective beautiful. So, it needs to be an adverb. Yes? Okay, great. But on the GMAT, no, what I'm typically bothered about are on the SAT, what I'm typically bothered about are the group of word modifiers. What do I mean by group of word modifiers? So, single word modifiers was my adjective and adverb. But then there can be group of words which also describe something or somebody. How would I know that, Aditi, or what do you mean by that? If I say walking down the street, I was hit by a brick. Guys, tell me, can I not just conveniently delete this sentence and just say I was hit by a brick? Can I not say that? I can, right? I can just remove this walking down the street and I can just say I was hit by a brick. That's my main sentence. Walking down the street is not one word, but these are group of 4 words which is actually describing this pronoun I. So this walking down the street is not one word, group of words describing this pronoun I. Walking down the street is called a phrase. Why is it called a phrase? I'll just come to that. But I've at least established that these are group of words which are describing this pronoun I. Yes? Now I'm just going back to that verb tense chapter where I said I am swimming was my verb, guys. So I said I was swimming, I have been swimming, she has been swimming, they were swimming. All of these are just verbs. We agreed? Then guys, you'll remember I love swimming. We said swimming is a noun. Arshita, do you understand this? I love swimming. Swimming is a noun.
Yes, ma'am.
So I love football. I love cricket. Similarly, I love swimming. Okay, so swimming was a noun. Now tell me, Aditya, if I say I am a swimming champion, what is swimming acting like here?
Mamu.
No, Aditya, this swimming, Baba, is acting like an adjective. This is something which you didn't know. I'm just telling you now. Am swimming, verb. Love swimming, swimming is a noun. But I am a swimming champion, Aditya. I can just delete this swimming and I can just say I'm a champion. Doesn't really make sense, but it is a standalone complete sentence on its own. I'm the best champion, I'm the world's greatest champion, I'm the worst champion, I'm a swimming champion. Swimming is just extra information, guys. Swimming is acting like an adjective. This is my last bit of confusion, okay? Post this, I'm not going to confuse you further. ING can be either a verb, ING can be a noun, ING can be an adjective. ING verbs will always have these helper words. Am, was, have, has. So whenever these come in with an ING, I know that that's a continuous tense. So that's a continuous verb tense. When it is the subject or the object of a sentence, then it's a noun. But when it's describing something, it is an adjective. Also called a participle. When a verb decides to act like an adjective, it's called a participle. Tell me something, Shrikant, if I say that the sleeping beauty was woken up, what is sleeping acting like there?
Adjective.
Adjective. If I suppose say the sinking ship was anchored. Same thing, sinking is acting like an adjective. The ship was sinking verb. But the sinking ship was anchored, sinking is just acting like an adjective. I can delete this and just say the ship was anchored. So sinking is acting like an adjective. So when a verb acts like an adjective, it's called a participle. There can be two kinds of participle. Again, you don't need to remember this name, but just logically understand that a verb can also act in an end in an en on an ed and act like an adjective. Sinking ship is a present participle, sunken ship is a past participle. Tired girl went off to sleep. Tired is just describing the girl, guys. It's acting like an adjective. I could just say the girl went off to sleep. In this sentence, what is my verb, Amanda? The tired girl went off to sleep. What is my verb in this sentence? Anyone? What's my verb, Yutika, here?
Went.
Went off is my verb. To sleep is also actually acting like a noun. A to plus a verb, no, guys, is always a noun. To err is human, to forgive is divine. All those are also nouns. But you don't need to know all that. As long as you understand that this tired is extra information, it is acting like an adjective. Yes? So when I say, while walking down the street, I was hit by a brick, I'm just going back to that original sentence from where we started. You know, this sentence, where I said walking down the street is extra, please block this, remove this. Then I said it's a phrase. Now I'm going to explain to you why it's a phrase. It's a phrase, guys, because this walking is not a verb. In fact, while walking down the street has no subject and it does not have a verb of its own. How is walking not a verb, Aditi? Walking is just describing I. It's acting like a participle. For an ing verb, guys, please understand you always need this helper verb. So if I had said I was walking would have been a verb. But when I'm saying while walking I was hit, this walking has no helper here. It is not a verb. It is also not a noun. It is not a subject or an object of a sentence. It is just describing I. So it's a participle. Do we understand this, that walking is not a verb here? So because walking is not a verb here, these group of words do not have a subject and a verb of its own. So it's called a phrase. So what?
Phrase, what's the verb?
Come again, Yutika. So if this is a phrase, what is the verb?
What is the phrase? What is the verb in this phrase?
So phrases don't have verbs, Baba. In a phrase, Yutika, there is never a verb, nor is there a doer. That is why, you know, phrases are always dependent. You can never have an independent phrase. So phrases can never make sense on their own.
So because there's no doer, there's no verb either.
Absolutely. Or the other way around. There is no action, so there is no doer. There is no doer, so there is no verb. Either ways, it's interchangeable. And exactly because, Yutika, these phrases can never stand alone on their own, the rule in modifier says that this modifying phrase has to be placed next to the noun or pronoun it intends to modify. Which means, guys, I cannot say this sentence is absolutely wrong. Walking down the street, a brick hit me. They catch you on this on the SAT very often. Walking down the street, a brick hit me is incorrect grammar. Because this will seem to suggest, guys, as if the brick was walking down the street. Because walking down the street does not have its own subject and verb, no, it's clinging on to this brick. It's trying to attach itself to this noun, a brick. So it seems as if the brick is walking down the street. Now you'll tell me, come on, Aditi, don't be stupid. Don't you know that a brick can't walk? I can't walk. I am the one who's walking. Is that not implied? No, grammatically what is getting conveyed is as if the brick is walking down the street. How much ever it sounds okay to the ear. Yes? Therefore,
When they ask us to modify or make the sentence concise, and if that sentence has a phrase and a sentence which can stand on its own, do we just cut down the phrase? Do we not put it there?
No, Yutika, that's not how they're going to test you, Baba. So what they can give is, so they've given you a phrase, walking down the street, followed by a brick hit me. And suppose they mark it as 2. Okay, so that's your question number 2. Now, against question number 2, you'll have options given. Okay, so option A would be probably a repetition. So they will say a brick hit me. Now, the next option could be I was hit by a brick. The next option could be my foot. In fact, my next slide would have shown you this. My foot fell on a brick, or my head fell on a brick. So then you know, Yutika, that a brick hit me, my foot, my head, all of them are wrong. Option B is the correct answer, because who was walking down the street? I was walking down the street.
So the noun has to come first.
The subject or the noun or the pronoun which this phrase wants to modify has to come first.
Okay, yeah, got it.
First meaning next to that phrase. Amanda, tell me, if I say driving down the lane, the cat was hit by me. Is that right or wrong? Do you want me to write that?
Driving down the lane, the cat was hit by me. Yes, it is. It's correct, ma'am, because it's a continuous action.
So it's not a continuous action, Amanda. Driving is not a verb. How do you know that, Aditi? Driving is not a verb, for heaven's sake. What are you saying? There is no helper, no, Baba. If I said Aditi is driving, Aditi was driving, friends were driving, then it was a continuous action. But when I don't have these helper verbs, then it is not a verb. So what is it, Amanda? Driving down the lane, the cat was hit by me. What is driving? If it is not a verb.
It is not correct, because the cat wasn't driving. So
Absolutely. I hit the cat. Because I was driving, not the cat. So the previous sentence, no, how much ever it sounds correct is incorrect. And this is where they're going to catch you on the SAT, Yutika. You understand? So just place the right noun or pronoun next to the phrase. It's logical, you know, guys. Can you say tall and manly, the mother looked affectionately at her son?
no, because then it would imply that the mother is.
Correct. Okay, absolutely, Yutika. So, you know, when I say tall and manly, the mother looked affectionately at her son, tall and manly is seeming to describe the mother. It has to describe the son, no? So the mother looked affectionately at her tall and manly son.
Yeah.
So it's very logical, you know. Modifier is giving me extra information, so it has to be placed next to whatever it is describing. So when walking down the street wants to modify I'll have to say walking down the street I was hit, or I can also say I walking down the street was hit by the brick. So either ways, you know, they just have to be next to each other. It could be left hand side or right hand side. Is that clear? So just exactly, you know, what we were discussing, Yutika. Walking down the street, a brick hit me. Options given. All these would be wrong. Only B is right, because I was walking down the street. But coming to the other thing, okay, Yutika, which I think you were trying to put in, is I can, you know, change this walking down the street into also while I was walking down the street. That is also completely all right. It's absolutely all right. What I've done here is, guys, I've changed a phrase into a clause. What is a clause? It has a subject and a verb. Amanda, this was walking has now become a verb.
Yes, ma'am.
Was, helper, walking. Others, guys, do we understand this? This is very important. Shrikant, Archita, Jeel, Aditya. Yeah, please ask me if you all don't understand this, because this is extremely important, okay? They do have 1 or 2 questions of this in every passage on the SAT. So it's very simple. Modifying phrase followed by a noun or a pronoun. Just ensure that it's the right noun or pronoun. If not, then, you know, from the options, you'll have an option which will bring in the right noun or pronoun next to the phrase. If the phrase itself is underlined, change it into a clause, which means introduce the subject and the verb there. Yes? Okay, cool. So that was in fact my modifier chapter. No questions there, right? So we've done 2 important chapters, guys, today. Something called verb tenses. So verbs also we did, moods and voices, and then now modifiers. Idioms, I told you, is more self-study. I will send you material for the idioms, and also keep going through few idioms every day. Lecture 1, what I'd covered was subject verb agreement and pronouns. So actually that brings me to the last chapter which I need to cover today when it comes to grammar. Once I'm done with this chapter, my basic rambling, of all the grammar turns would be done. And then from next turn onwards, if you all go through this material, you all can ask me questions, and then we'll actually start solving. So we will see why we were doing all of this and how can we be tested on the SAT. So turn 3, I want to dedicate to just solving writing passages with you all, and then turn 4 onwards, I'll go to the reading section of the SAT. Yeah, but meanwhile, as in, any questions so far, you all can put it in the chat box, the YouTube viewers, or you all could ask me, guys. No doubts so far? Okay, great. So let me then do the parallel construction chapter. Parallel construction is basic common sense, okay? So when I teach you, this will seem to be very, very simple. Parallel construction basically says that whenever there are a list of things, please ensure that they're parallel. Common sense, if I say Aditi loves swimming, cycling and dancing, there are 3 things which she loves doing. They need to be parallel to each other. They need to be in the same grammar form. What is swimming, cycling and dancing, guys? Now we should know, are they verbs? Aditya, are swimming, cycling and dancing verbs? No, very good. They are nouns. They're gerunds. Love is my verb. Aditi loves swimming like she loves football. They're gerunds, so they all need to be gerunds. I cannot say Aditi loves swimming, cycling and to dance. Yes? So when there are items in the list, they need to be parallel. So when I'm saying both X and Y, not only X but also Y, I say this is maths. Where you have to just ensure that X and Y are parallel. She is both beautiful and talented. Awesome, that's correct. Both are adjectives. I cannot say she's both a beauty and talented. That would be wrong, guys. Yeah, so beauty would be an abstract noun and talented is an adjective. So I can't use beauty and talented. So not only X but also Y. Not X but Y, either X or Y, neither X nor Y. In all these cases, X and Y have to be parallel. So tell me something, if I say she's either coming from Australia, suppose this third sentence, she's either coming from Australia or New Zealand. Is this right or wrong? Madhumita, can you tell me, she's either coming from Australia or New Zealand. Is that right or wrong?
It's wrong.
It's wrong. How would you correct this, Baba, and why is this wrong?
She's coming from either Australia or New Zealand.
Correct. Okay. Why? What she's trying to say is, why is this wrong? Okay, we again colloquially speak like this. This is like my X and this is like my Y. So coming from Australia and New Zealand, that's not parallel. I just treat them as box bracket. I've just put this curly brackets to kind of, mathematically show you that this is X and this is Y. And this is not parallel. So I can either say what Madhumita just said, she's coming from either Australia or New Zealand. Or I can say she's coming from Australia or coming from New Zealand. So that's also okay. So I just have to ensure that X and Y are totally parallel. Yes? Another part of parallel construction is comparison. So it says that whenever you are comparing two things, please ensure that there is an apple to apple comparison. What do I mean by apple to apple comparison? If I'm saying like Aditi, Noyana or Iona loves maths, it's perfect because I'm comparing two people. But if I say like Aditi, Noina's maths is very good, that's wrong, guys. My comparison just says that left hand side should match the right hand side. It's again maths. So my left hand side here is Aditi and my right hand side here is maths, which is incorrect. So how do I correct this? I will say like Aditi, Noina is good in maths, or like Aditi's maths, Noina's maths is very good. Yes? So how do I compare whenever I say like X, Y, unlike X, Y, X is more than Y, X is less than Y, X is greater than, fewer than. In all these cases, I have to ensure that X and Y are equal. There are more boys than girls in this class. There's more heat than humidity in this country. So in all these cases, I have to ensure that I'm comparing the like things. So in this example, tell me, Jill, that the ears of an elephant are bigger than a giraffe. Is that right or wrong? This sentence, is this right or wrong?
It's right.
No, Baba. Ears of an elephant, no, Jill, I'm comparing to a giraffe.
No, that's wrong.
Yeah. So I'll say ears of an elephant are bigger than a giraffe's ears. So I'm comparing ears to the ears. Or I can say the ears of a giraffe. Or I can just say giraffes. Or I can say those of a giraffe. All four are okay, guys. So I'm comparing the ears to the ears, no? So I have to make sure that the left hand side and the right hand side match. I will like say the house of Soumya is better than that of Aditi. But the ears are bigger than those. So those is used to refer to a plural thing. That is used to refer to a singular thing. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, great. So that's comparison, guys. So that kind of, brings us to the end of this discussion on grammar. There are few small miscellaneous things here and there which we'll come to when it comes to solving. So has everybody who's attended the lecture today understood whatever we did today? Any questions, any doubts? Anything around the SAT that you want to know if you were not there in the first class? You can give it in August, September also, October also. So I will need like another month and a half. So what we've essentially done is kind of just warmed up into the whole grammar thing. So there is one writing section, there's one reading section. So we've just warmed up a little with the grammar. Now turn 3, how I'm trying to structure this is, turn 3 I'm going to actually sit together with you and do a writing section. So writing has 4 passages, every passage has 11 questions. So the questions are not purely only grammar corrections. Okay, so one part of it is grammar correction. Then there are few other editing skills that one needs. Should I keep this line? Should I remove this line? How do I restructure the paragraph? Where the line numbers can get shuffled. A little bit of vocab in context, is this word okay or should I be using some other word? So all of that, is more hands-on. So I will sit together and solve that with you and then give you, a lot of practice to do. And then turn 4 and 5, I want to dedicate to reading. So then, I'm going to take you through the reading sections and then do a lot of reading. Again, a lot of practice will come in there. Post that, then turn 7 and 8. I just want to keep purely for doubt solving, more practice, give you all timed sections to do. So yeah, SAT is also there in December. And it's also there in January. So we'll have to kind of see how well prepared we are. Because SAT English is a lot about practice. So the more you practice, the more variety you will get. So these 2 weeks have been just very light, okay? We've hardly done anything. The real rigor will come in, once you'll start solving. Yeah? Okay, great. It was great to have you all here and to speak to you all. This was a great session. Let's catch up next Thursday, 4 o'clock.